Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Blessing in Divorce. Today, I want to talk to the moms and the dads of children who are getting divorced. So this is not about parenting your children through your own divorce. It is about parenting your adult children through their divorce. I've had several mothers reach out to me over the last few years wanting to come into my Facebook group or wanting to even have a conversation with me to help guide them as they support their children who are going through this. It is such a beautiful and loving thing for them to want to do and to understand that they might not know exactly how to do that, especially if they've never gone through it themselves, right? So let's talk about that today. Let me see if I can give some guidance to parents out there. And if you're listening to this and you're going through a divorce, maybe direct this towards your parents so that they can help, so that I can help them rather be there for you in a way that feels supportive and good and, takes away the possible frustrations and the things that don't feel comfortable. Let's put it that way. Okay, so let's do that today. Hope you'll join me. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of A Blessing in Divorce. I am so grateful to be allowed into your headset and day today. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm the host of this podcast and the owner and founder of The Separation Club, which is the club you never wanted to be part of, but the best club to be in if you're going through separation and divorce. Here we talk about how to heal, move forward, and find love if you're so inclined. Also, motherhood through divorce, finding yourself, and creating the life you deserve. Our tools are community, sisterhood, honesty, vulnerability, spirituality, and coaching. And that's when we aren't talking to our experts. I'm also a divorced mother of 4 adult sons, remarried, and a stepmom to 3. So we will be talking about everything that goes with all of that here. If you are recently separated, thinking of separating, divorcing, or even beyond your divorce, but still feeling it, then this is the podcast for you. Hello there again, and welcome back, and thank you for joining me for this episode, which I think is actually really important. And even if you are the one going through the divorce and you would like your parents to listen to this, maybe they won't, or maybe they're just not podcast people. I think you might find some really good tips here for guiding them on how they can best support you. So whoever you are, you're here for a reason. You're here because you either care about your own recovery or someone else's. So let's dive into this episode and this conversation. So, like I said, I've had several mothers specifically contact me to be able to jump into the Facebook group, for example, or they want to speak with me directly. I've had several actually book sort of a one-off coaching session with me so that they can better support their child. It has been daughters, and that's probably because I primarily work with women as they go through a divorce, and they want to be able to support them in the best way possible, which is so sweet and kind, and I think so resourceful in a way to reach out to get some help doing that instead of just thinking that you know exactly how to support someone through something you might not have ever gone through before yourself. Or even if you're listening to this as a parent and you have gone through a divorce and here you're now watching your child go through it, you know, you might be experiencing some feelings around self-blame or could this be my fault or whatever. And all of these things tend to play in as we support the people who are going through something difficult. So let's talk about some strategies for being the best possible support. Okay, let's just dive into it. I keep talking about how important this is. Let's just do this. So I am looking at my notes here, about 8 ideas. So let's just work through them one at a time. And they're in no particular order of importance. They're more in order of how they came to me as I was planning this episode. So I want to say again, if you're a mom or dad of a child going through divorce, kudos for being here. Welcome. And as a mother of adult children who are not yet going through any of this, married, they're barely even married, they're kind of just starting on that part of their life. But I understand how important it is to you to be there for them and to show love and care and to be there in the best possible way. And I give you so much credit for being willing to expand your horizons a little bit and take some guidance when it comes to this. So I'm really glad you're here. And thank you for trusting me with this conversation. The very first piece of advice I want to give you, and it jumped into my head the moment I decided to sit down and plan this episode, is to become a wonderful and amazing listener. being a great listener is doing just that, listening, really hearing what they're saying and not talking. You cannot be a great listener if you're constantly either interrupting to say something and advise them and comfort and console, whatever you're doing. And you also cannot be a great listener if you're sitting there waiting for your opportunity to say something because, oh my God, like I know what I want to say. And you're just waiting for them to kind of take that breath or finish their thought so that you can say it. Listening is really just letting them sort of word vomit and hearing really what is it that they're saying? What are the emotions they're expressing that they're struggling with? Is it grief? Is it loneliness? Is it lack of confidence or feeling unworthy or feeling unloved or feeling neglected or feeling any number of things? We tend to want to rush to them. And I know this just because when my kids have gone through anything, the initial, the immediate thing we want to say to them is, I love you and you're amazing and you've got this. And I'm here for you and you can talk to me anytime. But in our efforts to comfort and to show up and like try to make them feel better, which is so ingrained in us to want to do that, we might not be really listening. And so I want to encourage you to, when they start talking, to just stop talking and just let them talk. Just let them get it all out. Let them ramble on. And then when they're done talking, ask them, I heard everything you said and I'm so sorry you're hurting, for example. Acknowledge that you've heard them. I can hear how difficult this is for you. So just, validate what they've just said to you. And then ask them, do you want some advice or do you want to talk through some of these things? Or do you feel a little better just having said it out loud? Is that good enough? Like, what do you want from me? What would be the most supportive thing I could do for you right now? And so they might actually, say, no, thank you. It just really felt good to talk about it and to say it. And then that's enough. And you say, okay, great. I'm glad I could be here for that. And I'm here for you for anything you need, right? So just really the very first thing I want you to learn to do is to listen and not talk. I know when I almost left my first husband, 8 years before the actual divorce because he was having an affair then as well. And I did contact my family right away. I needed the support. I wanted to tell them. And my mom wasn't saying any of the things that I needed or wanted to hear. And I think what she was expressing, she was actually encouraging me not to leave because the kids were young. And so I think what she was expressing was sort of her fear for me. She was just worried about how I would manage. I was a stay-at-home mom and my kids were super young. I had 4 of them. And how would I manage? So that was her fear being projected onto me. So I ended up not really talking to her a lot about it because I really was not hearing the things that I needed to hear, which was probably just support, like just, you'll be okay and how can I help? Like that's really all I wanted. So when I went through it the second time, I didn't even tell my mom for 4 months. I did not tell her until we had made the decision to separate and he was about to move out. I think I phoned her like the week before he was moving out. All decisions had been made, all plans had been made. I knew what I was doing. While I still needed some support, I was no longer in that like emotional wreck phase of it all because I had worked through that and decisions had been made. So then I phoned her and I remember I told her with a completely dry eye, like no emotion, here's what's happening in my life, here's why, and here's what we're doing. And she was, I think at that point the kids were older and other things were playing in, and not to mention she'd watched 8 more years of our marriage. So her support was a little better then. But I also didn't, because I was unemotional and I didn't invite in any kind of like, what do you think? Or, oh my God, or I don't know what to do. So there was no opportunity for her. So she actually just took a very sort of supportive, distant role. And that was all I wanted from her. So I think, as you're listening to this, the very important thing is to try to understand what they need from you. And they might need nothing except a safe ear. that might be all they need. And it's really hard to not say something. Just don't until they want you to. What do you think, Mom? What do you think, Dad? Well, what part of this do you want me to weigh in on? Or what is it that you need to hear from me? Just ask maybe a couple more questions to make sure you're going down the right path. If you start talking and they want you to talk, tread into it gently. So that brings me to the next point, is to be very, very compassionate. You might think that you're compassionate, and you probably are. I'm not saying you're not. But let's think about the best way you can show compassion to someone who's going through this, who is in an emotionally devastated place. Compassion means, I know you're in terrible pain. I know what it's like to be in pain. Whether you know what a divorce is like or not, you know what it's like. You've lived long enough. If you're a parent of an adult child getting divorced, you have lived through enough in your life that you know what it's like to go through something very challenging and emotionally painful. Something has happened along your path in life to So try to just sit with them and be understanding. I know you're in a lot of pain right now. I get it. I know you're in terrible pain. So let's say there's been a difficult relationship between you and them in that, well, I never really liked him anyway, or I never really liked your partner anyway. That's incredibly non-compassionate, because it's not, as much as that might be how you felt, and maybe they know that, but that's not what they need from you right now. They need you to feel their pain and see their pain and not make them feel in any way stupid or something for not having seen how bad their partner is until now, right? And in fact, this your child may be expressing incredible heartache and loss and grief and wanting to go back, even though this person they're getting divorced from, might be incredibly unkind and unfaithful and perhaps abusive. But that doesn't mean that they are going to respond in the way you think they should respond. So when they're telling you something, especially in the early days, show compassion. Just be understanding to the pain they're going through. Accept that you are not in their shoes and you don't know what it's like, and therefore you don't have an opinion right now. You're not trying to help. You are just sitting with them and you're understanding and validating their pain. Just sit there and it's like, I get that you're in pain. I'm so sorry. Hug them, love them without opinions, unless they're asking for it. It's always follow their lead. If they want you to say something, they'll tell you. If they don't, they might not say anything, but they're not inviting in that comment. Don't say anything. Okay, so compassion, incredible compassion, even when you don't understand why they're in so much pain. I had one mom call me and we had a session together, and she couldn't understand why her daughter was so sad, because this was her decision, the daughter's decision. And it was a decision that had almost been made once before too. So it's like, she's getting what she wants. Why is she so sad? Well, that doesn't mean that the loss of the, what was planned and the future that they had planned together and that she'd counted on and that she wanted, it doesn't mean it's not sad. It doesn't mean she doesn't have feelings for this person. It just means that she's realized it isn't right and she needs to do something different. She needs to take a different path. There can be so much grief and loss and heartache in that decision. It doesn't mean there's no love or caring. It doesn't mean that it's not disruptive. So let's not in any way impose our own, well, why aren't you happy about this? Or what's the problem here? You're going to be better off. That is our feeling. That's how we feel. That is not how they feel. So let's support them on their level. Plain and simple. So that brings me to the third thing I want to mention today, and that is that your opinions of their ex or soon to be ex is actually quite irrelevant. And negative comments about that person are generally not helpful, especially early on, but maybe not at all. This is especially true if they have children together, because then the other parent is going to be in your child's life forever, your grandchild's life forever, right? So, and therefore in yours, they're a factor, they're a presence, and just trash talking that person and hating that person is not helpful for anyone. Your child who's getting the divorce might need to go through a stage of anger and venting and, being furious with this person. And there might be a lot of hostility or animosity in the beginning because feelings are so, emotions are high and there's a lot going on. But be the person who allows space for that to settle and for that friendship, perhaps that sort of co-parenting friendship to develop, and that you can be a positive influence there, or possibly even a bridge. Maybe you are the one who picks up the kids and drops them at the other parent's house on the weekend, or maybe you're the one who facilitates some of that to make it easier for everyone when the feelings are incredibly raw. Wouldn't it be better if you could be a resource in that way, instead of being the person who's like, I will not lay eyes on that person again. And, kind of, instead of driving the conflict and creating an even greater divide between the two of them, try to be a resource for them so that they can maintain some kind of a bridge, which they'll have to if they have children together. If they don't have children together, then again, we're back to just supporting and not necessarily trashing this person who still holds a place in their heart. And they haven't emotionally divorced from yet. They may be physically going through the divorce, separating, dividing finances, but the emotional part, it takes time. So if they are going to be able to come to you with their heartache, then they need to, unless they need to have a trashing session, which they'll kind of lead you into that. Try to not be the person who starts that. Try to not be the person that when there's a family gathering, somebody maybe comes up to them while you're standing there and says something like, oh, I hear you're getting divorced, I'm so sorry. And then you pipe up with, how big of an asshole this person is or whatever. It's not helpful. It makes your child feel awkward. It can make them feel like they were stupid to ever be involved with them in the first place. So let's just be a little careful about how we do that and let them drive the narrative and the conversation around it. And rather step aside, and you have your own friends you can go and talk to and vent and do that. You go to them for that. You don't go to your divorcing child for that. Okay, so number 4 builds again on this a bit, in that your role as a parent in just about anything in our adult children's life is to be helpful and resourceful, to be a place that they can come for advice and for questions and for help. And and now they're going through something really big. They might need help in all kinds of areas. Like they might need some parenting help, meaning, taking the kids every now and then so they can just get a break emotionally so they can focus on their own healing and their own well-being, as opposed to always being worried about their children who might be very young or whatever. It's providing help, like, they might have gone back to a stage where they might need some healthy meals delivered, and they might need some help cleaning up the house or getting some laundry done. And maybe you need to pick them up and take them out for a really nice walk on a Sunday, help them be busy on a weekend because the kids aren't there and now they're feeling super lonely and all their married friends are busy with their, families. And so they're just feeling really lonely. So it's just kind of showing up and being that gap, that thing that they need that isn't there anymore, and helping them bridge a little bit and helping them become more independent, of course, but not by forcing it. And also when you are talking to them, when you are showing up to kind of distract them, maybe taking them out to do something, try to just have normal conversation as well. Try to, just chit chat about stuff that can distract their mind off what they're doing or what's going on in their life, rather. Now they might dive back in every now and then. Let them get it out of the system, have a cry, and then again, like, hey, do you want to go have some lunch? Like, how about I come and pick you up and we go out and do some shopping? I've been dying to check out this new store. I don't know, whatever, like something, or go for a walk or a hike, or, tap into the things that your child normally really likes to do and see if you can distract them a little bit. Take them and their kids, if that's the case, whatever. Try to be sort of a little bit of the entertainer, if you will, the person taking care of them. So step into that role if you can, if that's possible for you. Now, this kind of takes me to a new point, which is not available to everyone, and that's not, that's not anything to feel bad about, or that doesn't mean you're lacking in some way. But if you are helping them financially through this, maybe you're paying for their lawyer, maybe you are helping set them up in a new place, perhaps you are giving them space in your own house so that they can kind of financially get themselves back on their feet to then eventually move out on their own when everything has been settled. When you get financially involved with your adult children, a lot of people make the mistake of then kind of feeling that they're entitled to give opinions on how money is being spent and suggesting that they do it this way or that way. Or if your money is being used to, for example, pay for a lawyer, it might be tempting to step into being part of the choosing process, or that, you should choose my friend's son who's a lawyer, for example. And the adult child may feel that they have to go with your recommendations because it's your money. Or they might feel that they can't make certain decisions because you're financially helping them. So if you're going to help financially, I would first of all really try to sit down and talk to them about, I'd like to help you financially. I'd like to help you. I know things are really tight for you until things get settled or whatever. We would like to pay for your lawyer, for example. It's just, here's the amount of money we can give you, or we can pay for all of it, or we can only pay for this much. And I'll leave it to you how you decide to distribute that, but we'd like to help you with your legal costs. So make sure that they understand that there's no strings attached, that you're stepping out of the process, you're just there to provide the money. If it's a loan, then stipulate the circumstances. Like I had to borrow money, quite a bit of money, from my sister for exactly the legal expenses. But I knew that once we had settled things and the house got sold, I'd be able to pay her back. So she was great. She just, when I told her what had happened and how, because I was a stay-at-home mom, he had basically cut me off. So I was I didn't have any money at all. And so she immediately said, how much money do you need? And with this, I was like, I don't know. She said, would this help, like this amount? And she goes, would that carry you through until everything's been done? I'm like, yeah, it absolutely will. So she, no strings attached, sent me the money so that I could borrow it. And it was with the understanding, like she put it in an email, sort of our legal agreement, that I would pay it back. And I'm pretty sure she gave it to me interest-free as well, that I would pay it back as soon as the house was sold, which is what I did. So try to be that person if you're financially in a position to help, as opposed to interfering in some way or doling it out based on if you think it makes sense. They're already in such a devastated place where it feels like, when you're going through divorce, it really feels like your life is out of control. Like you cannot control anything in your life anymore. You're emotionally a wreck. Finances are scary. Where are you going to live? How are your kids going to manage? What are you going to do now? There's so many questions. And if on top of that, they have to go through you and justify, things like spending money on a place or a lawyer or whatever, it just makes it harder. So either if you can't do it in a way that feels easy for everyone, then don't. That's okay. It's not your obligation or your duty to pay for things. But if you want to help, then be willing to just kind of write a check and let them spend it the way that they need to with their lawyer, and choose their own lawyer unless they ask you to be part of it. You can offer. You can say, if you would like me to join you, I will, but don't feel obligated just because we are helping you with the money. Like, help them understand that there's no strings attached. I think that is a really important part of this, especially if your child has experienced any kind of, emotional abuse or verbal abuse or financial abuse, or even just, of course, controlling kind of behavior in their marriage. Then it would be really important and really empowering for them to be allowed to make their own decisions. So keep that in mind. All right. That kind of moves me naturally into the next piece of advice, which is to not make this about you. And what I mean about that, I know you care deeply. I know you want to help, and I know you love them so much, and for you it might seem really clear what they should do. Because first of all, you're not going through this, so you're emotionally much more clear and therefore able to see things more clearly. However, everything you're seeing is through your lens of your life experience, your love for your child, your love for any potential grandchildren. And from your own experiences. It also, everything that you see and experience and feel around this comes with your experiences in marriage, possibly divorce, things that you've experienced maybe with your parents getting divorced, whatever it is. All of that, your own baggage comes into these kinds of decisions because they're so deeply seated emotionally. The love is so strong and deep for this child that it comes from that place. You might be much more rational and much more logical than they are because of their emotional state. But you cannot negate what's the word I'm looking for? You cannot ignore the fact that you're also carrying your own limiting beliefs, fears, and whatever from your own life experience. So make sure that you are not, when you're giving advice, that you're trying not to come from your own place and what you think is best. And also, it's really hard. Like, we get caught up in our own fear. What if I lose contact with my grandchildren? What if this? What if that? So let's try not to impose any of these kinds of things on our child as we're trying to help them and guide them if they're asking us for advice. The other thing is, your adult child who maybe has been great in the past is now not necessarily going to be their best. They're going to be emotional. They might get angry quickly, frustrated. They might say things to you that are not very nice. Let's not make this about you. Let's be able to understand that they're just going through something and they're not behaving really well. You can step out of the conversation. I'm not saying you have to tolerate bad behavior. You can just choose to say things like, I can tell you're having a really, really bad day and I'm so sorry. If there's nothing I can do to help you, I'm going to go. But let's talk again soon. And just, you don't have to take it. And you can cut off the conversation. But let's try to just avoid don't you talk to me like that, and just because you're going through a difficult time, or let's also by all means try to avoid any kind of why is it that you don't want my advice, and what is wrong, and I've lived a long time, I know what I'm talking about. Like, let's not be offended because they don't want to talk to you. Maybe they have their friends they want to go to, maybe they have their their therapist, their coach, their friends, their lawyer. They have all these people around who may be helping them. And maybe you're just not that person. Maybe they just want you to be a support person, like, bring a meal and help look after the kids and watch a movie together or whatever. Let's let them decide the role that you play and not be offended about not being allowed to play the role you'd like to play. So that is what I mean by not making this about you. That just makes it more difficult. Let's not also bring your experiences into it. If you went through a really difficult divorce and you feel that she's repeating a bit of a pattern, let's not make this about, well, when I went through it, and again, let's not make this about you. Okay. And I know you're coming from the right place. But let's just really think about how they might be hearing what you're saying. Okay. And maybe it would help you if you're connecting with some of this and you feel that some of this is happening and that you do find yourself saying some of these things. Set up a call with me. Let's talk. Let me help you. Maybe you need to work through some stuff. I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. But let's find ways that you can help your daughter or son as they go through this in a way that has value to them, that feels good, that feels loving. Let me help you. So this is, I do want to add that to this list, which it's just get help if you need to. I so admire these parents who have contacted me. I think how lucky their children are to have someone who's that invested in being helpful, that they actually invested in their own coaching session to learn more about that. So kind of wrapped up in all of this is also not in your effort of not making it about you. And this was just something that popped into my mind, and who brought this to my mind, or made me think of it, I should say. I'm remarried, and I know that when he was going through this, his mother and his soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law one day sat him down and felt they wanted to offer parenting advice to him. And he did not like that at all. And that is not because he's a selfish guy or because he thinks he's right all the time, but he was doing the best he could. He was struggling, and these kids were young. And he was just doing everything he could to do the best he could with what little energy he had left with everything that was happening in his life. And here the two of them wanted to offer some opinions on bedtime routines and discipline. And he was like, he just told them, do not stop talking right now, or I won't be able to have you guys around me while I'm going through this. So you stop or you go away. So they stopped, and they heard him, thankfully. But it made me realize that, sometimes you might see them change how they parent. They might be less strict. They might let things slip. Their children might become a little emotional and dysregulated because of it. That's not ideal. But unless, again, they're asking you, so-and-so is really, I'm really struggling to get, him to bed these days, or he's really acting out, then give productive advice and suggest resources instead of criticizing their parenting. They're just not able to handle it right now, plain and simple. This is not the time to say, well, you haven't exactly been stable. You might just say, it's understandable that you're completely tapped out emotionally, and dealing with this, I can understand, is very difficult. Would the child benefit from some counseling perhaps, or would it be beneficial for both of you to go? Those are helpful suggestions. Those are not you criticizing your child as a parent. That is not helpful right now. So just avoid parenting advice unless specifically asked, and then suggest resources without criticizing them in any way. So you're walking a minefield when you're getting into that territory, right? All right. The last one I want to talk to you about is your relationship with their soon-to-be ex or their ex. Be kind and accepting of the ex's role this is specifically relevant, honestly, if you have grandchildren. So they have children together. It is important for you to understand and accept that this person, whether you like them or not, is going to continue to be involved in your grandchildren's life, therefore also your child's life and yours. You are going to see each other at Christmas recitals and graduations and potentially weddings one day. You are going to meet at sporting events or dance competitions or whatever those grandchildren are involved in. And it is not helpful for anyone. It is the people who suffer the most when there's hostility and we have to stand at different sides of the arena or the field or whatever. The children feel that. It's awkward for them. Like I'm talking about the grandchildren now. They see that, one side of the family is over there and the other side of the family is on the other side, and it feels awkward and they don't know where to go first and they don't know who they should be talking to first, and it all feels incredibly difficult for them. Do everything you can to, again, be the bridge, to make it easy. Be polite, be respectful, and show kindness in front of your grandchildren. How you feel about them and how you talk about them, whatever, when you're away from them, whatever. Do what you need to do to get yourself to a place where when you see them, you can put a smile on your face, ask how they're doing, and just be civil. That's all that is required. That is the bare minimum, I should say, of what is required. If you can maintain a decent sort of relationship with them based on the relationship you already had with them, even better. The only thing to watch for is don't be so involved in the ex's life that you're somehow, it feels like disloyalty to your child. So take their lead a little bit about what they expect from you, but they might want you to cut contact altogether. If you have grandchildren, it's not practical. Instead, say to them, look, I get that you're angry. We are angry as well. But also help them understand that you can actually be a bridge between them and their ex, a soon-to-be ex, and that it is not beneficial to anyone that everybody is at conflict. So suggest that you can help. You can help, as I said earlier in this episode, with things like pickups and drop-offs. You can be the bridge that makes it easier for the kids to go back and forth, to see all of you in one place. You can even be a physical barrier almost between your child and their soon-to-be ex. If you're in like a school school event and you're all gathered in a crowded space and it feels very awkward perhaps for them to be in such close proximity. Who knows what's going on, whatever. But you can actually provide that physical sort of, you're between them. And so that kind of shield to protect your child who is feeling very emotional in the moment. Or even if that person needs to run to the bathroom and cry, you can again be there for the kids, the grandkids. So you have so many roles and you're such an important part of the survival of this. I want to wrap up by saying, I know this is hard for you as well. You as a parent of a child going through a divorce, I know you're grieving the loss of, what we feel, what our children feel. Your child is in pain, you are in pain. So I know this is really hard for you as well, and you need support. You can't go to your child for support because they have enough to deal with. They're just not the person for you to go to. You can go to your friends, of course. You can go to each other if you're still married, and you can come to me. So I really welcome these conversations, and they have been so positive when I have them. I really would love to help. So I will be including some information in the show notes and also on the slide if you're watching this on YouTube about how to look at my coaching packages and the things that I offer. I am here to help. And I commend you for wanting help. I commend you for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for doing that. And your divorcing child thanks you as well, because you will now be that much more resourceful and helpful, and kind of being able to be there for them in the way that actually works. And if you are the one going through divorce listening to this, maybe suggest that your parent listens to this, even if they're doing a great job supporting you, just because there's some extra ideas here. And if they're not into doing that, maybe this has helped you ask for the things that you need, or put words into, on the things that you need from your parents so that you can articulate it to them. Whatever works for you. And I am here for all of you. So I look forward to hearing from you. I would love if you would leave me a review, a few stars. Let me know what you think about this episode. I thank you so much for being here and for taking the time and letting me be part of your day and into your headset. Until next time, have a beautiful day.